Look at you guys coming in. I love this. Let's do I love starting webinars this way. Why don't we use the chat and just throw your location in the chat. I'd love to know where people are joining. You can probably tell from my country hillbilly accent, I am in West Virginia. Putting that in the chat. I'll get us started. Oh, Oklahoma, Illinois. I love that. Phoenix, Christine, I think. Oh yeah. Kate's here from Minneapolis. Love the Twin Cities. Ben's from Huntington, West Virginia. I hear you, Ben. Oh man. Oh, there's Carly. Hey, Carly. I love seeing people coming in. We're gonna start. It's 12:01 my time. We're gonna get this thing started. I know some people are just coming in. This is those of you who do webinars with me, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, Josh does this every single time, but it is the absolute truth. I'm easily excited. And this topic is no exception to, how I go about my business. I think there is more money right now in education than what I have ever seen in my career, and maybe we'll ever see again. It's a huge opportunity, and it's got me really, really excited to talk about some of the ideas that I've always just dreamed about that we could actually make happen right now with the opportunities that we're given with federal money. At the same time, I also have quite a bit of work experience with at the state government level and state departments of education and working with federal money, and nothing keeps me up at night like the idea of maybe misspending federal money, because that is a nightmare for people who have been in that situation. And so I wanted to have a conversation with all of us in a way that kind of brings balance to this conversation and allows us to explore some big picture things and maybe dream big on some projects that we've always wanted to do and now actually have the funding to do. And also have a kind of safety net under that big dream that would allow us to know that we're spending the money in a way that is ethical and also in alignment with the federal government guidelines for these funds. And so as much as I enjoy talking about this, I don't necessarily have the expertise to do this by myself. So we're bringing in a guest who I have come to really love in my works with Heyworth. Her name is Lisa Taylor. Take a second and introduce yourself for the group.
Sure. I am Lisa Taylor. I'm the superintendent in Heyworth, Illinois, which is kind of a smaller rural district outside of Bloomington Normal. This is my 8th year as superintendent and my 20th in education. And I will say the last year or two have been the most exciting in unique ways and just different every day. So I'm glad to be here and help out today.
Awesome. Well, yeah, so thank you very much for joining. And like I say, I think we're going to have a great time together. I'm actually going to start with some questions for you, because I alluded to this in my introduction, but I think it's worth kind of circling back around on, spending some time talking. There's a lot of federal money out there, great opportunities for us to do something fun and be creative. But a lot of people, when it comes to spending federal money, have legitimate concerns. And I was just wondering if you can kind of share your experience as being money manager, superintendent, head of school. What are some of the concerns and the obstacles that you've seen with using federal monies?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said earlier, this is the biggest influx of money in my career. And the only thing I could say would even be in the ballpark was ARA funds, not to date myself. That was 10 or more years ago. And my biggest memory from that was the federal audit that came afterwards. And so we learned a lot of lessons there, and just share some of those with you guys today. But I would say one thing especially unique in the American Rescue Plan is this overarching equity issue, right? And keeping in mind kids and subgroups who were disproportionately affected by the pandemic. And so it's a bit overwhelming to, kind of look at where are we going and what are we going to spend our money on and how do we get everybody to weigh in. And so that's kind of the first big challenge, right? Is deciding where we're going to spend this money and who all should be weighing in. And so I watched a local school board meeting a week or so ago, and it really just looked like a chaotic brainstorming session. Everybody was just shouting out ideas. Ideas were all over the place. And it just made me really appreciate the planning process. And so I would say, just plan thoroughly, plan with equity in mind. Make sure you have a schedule, make sure you have a timeline, and really decide how you're going to have the community weigh in. So superintendents and school boards, we usually have public comment in meetings, right? Or public hearings, and that's how people weigh in. But if the last year and a half has taught us nothing else, people will weigh in virtually, right? And so what we did is we've really used social networking polls, right? Surveys, online surveys, you just get a lot broader participation. And so as our administrative team, we did our brainstorming, we looked at immediate and critical needs and immediate impact issues, and then had families weigh in on those to help identify our priorities. So that's one of the challenges, is getting that weigh in and getting it organized in time that you meet your application deadline. And then a challenge that's not here yet, but it's coming, is definitely reporting. So anything with federal funds has a lot of federal strings, right? And in Illinois, we're required to report out annually, but they've told us multiple times, it's going to be more detailed and it's going to be disaggregated by these student populations. And so that means you better track your stuff that way. We label all equipment with stickers, right? We label who's using these, right? Make sure you're keeping inventory spreadsheets, make you're documenting how you're providing services and making sure it's used in an equitable manner. And so I just say plan and spend like you are going to be audited, document everything. It's a lot there, but it will make your life a lot easier on the backside.
Okay, so a couple of things that make me ideas that I have that are sparked from your comments. Number one is I think it would be really beautiful if there was like a cheat sheet or a checklist or some kind of like almost like a rule book. I know that there are some expertise out there on this topic with like E-rate consultants and those kinds of people. But to be fair to even the E-rate consultants, ECF and this kind of ESSER money, this is uncharted territory for a lot of people. So for you, I'm just curious to know, is there some kind of cheat sheet or checklist or something that you can understand? Because we all know federal money has set asides, it has some special interests that have to be taken care of. We may have this kind of money and think, oh, this is a great time to put AstroTurf on the field, and is that okay? Or is it not? We're always looking for money to do buildings and buses. We always want to do buildings and buses. And, can those kinds of projects be funded with this? So do you have any kind of commentary on that? And then before I turn you loose to answer that question, I just wanted to mention something that I forgot to say at the beginning. If you're here, thanks for being here. And we're going to send you a Starbucks gift card too. Feel free to use the chat while Lisa and I are talking. Use that chat to throw questions in, because we've saved about 5 minutes at the end of the session for that. So yeah, we'll do that too. Okay, Lisa, sorry, back to you. Can you share a little bit about cheat sheets or checklists or anything that you have along those lines?
Yeah, so we have created some more user-friendly ones than the ones provided, and kind of categorized health and safety, policy and mitigation, which we're all doing, right? How we mitigate, what are our strategies for, fighting this? And then kind of academic and mental health. And so those three big, broad chunks. And like you said, things like turf, can you relate that to academic health and PE classes? Yeah, you probably could. I would be very careful. I would really focus on those things that you won't have to pay back. You don't want to spend $1 million on something that then later an auditor is like, I don't see how this was serving all kids, and I don't see how it helped with academic gains, right? And you want to make sure you're documenting those things. So I would say be careful. The other big piece you mentioned, ECF, is knowing what you can spend in each, right? So we had originally planned for some things in our very early stimulus funds plan that we later found out could be funded in ECF, right? But there are things in ECF you can't fund here. And so putting your expenses in the right funding strands, the right opportunities is very smart to maximize what you get, right? Take it all and use it, or don't leave it and I'll spend what you don't spend. That's fine too.
That's funny. Well, I just want to be totally clear about some things, because we threw out the name ECF, and this is a conversation about ESSER, which is a little bit different than ECF. So just to be clear to everyone on the call, there is another pot of money called Emergency Connectivity Funds, or ECF for short. And so, but it's all federal money, and for us, the people that are spending it and trying to dream up student projects, it all can kind of roll in together. I feel like the same kind of thing. Lisa, I wanted to make mention of one other thing too, and just get some feedback from you on this. One of the things that I say all day, every day at Trifera is we can invest all the money in the world into technology and into these initiatives. And that's all well and good, because I'm a believer in it. I have a proclivity for teaching with technology. I always have. That's just kind of the way I teach. But if we buy all this technology and we don't also invest in people and outfit them and equip them with the skills that they need to capitalize on it, I feel like it's a waste of money and it's a waste of equipment. So what if we sell you, the Heyworth School District, everything that we have in inventory, and we bring a tractor trailer load and dump a bunch of stuff on you? If we don't spend some time working with the kindergarten teacher, helping her understand how this relates to number sense, if we don't spend some time working with the algebra teacher and the social studies teacher to help them understand the civil rights movement can be taught through this technology device, we're really just kind of throwing money at a problem without getting at the source of it. So can you speak to the relevancy and the importance for also making the human investment too?
Yeah, that was our first big lesson when schools shut down, right? In my district, we had one-to-one already, right? But I wouldn't say it was fully implemented where every grade level was using it throughout the school day. And we definitely weren't hosting all grade levels online, right? And putting everything we teach online. And so we immediately had a need for, how are we using these cameras? How can we teach people the basics, right? Your classroom platforms and that sort of thing, but how can we take this further? And I think that ties in, and technology allows you to do that. But you've got to train your people. And so we talk about this a lot with underserved students, right? They can visit places they've never been, right? There's so much more we can do than just host a classroom online. And the biggest part on districts as your leaders too, is you have to model it for them, right? We can't just buy all this nice shiny stuff and leave it sitting in the corner. So model it yourself and make sure you train your staff and train them in, all different areas of it so they can explore too.
I love that. So I just want to provide a couple of final thoughts for everyone on the call. A couple of things just to wrap up my end of the conversation, then I'll kick it over to you, Lisa, for any final thoughts that you have. There's just two things on my end. Number one is I think it's so important for us to dream wild right now. The basic stuff, like going one-to-one, getting hotspots for kids, those kinds of things. I mean, yes, that's a no-brainer for this kind of money. But I think this kind of money yields some wild ideas. I mean, let's just get super creative, because you mentioned some old money that was around, when you were first getting started, and I had what was that money that we had some connectivity funds years ago with George W. Bush, and I was like, man, I feel like this is a lot of money. And we're kind of in that space, again, with more creative funding ideas than we ever have. And so that's what one thing that I want to encourage everyone is just to dream really big and think way outside the box. The second thing is, this is relevant for everyone on the call. You don't have to be the head of school or superintendent to be involved in decision-making for this. I was just in South Dakota, had a quick conversation with a couple of teachers and a tech director, and I asked them about, what they were doing with ESSER funds. And their immediate response is, oh, that's above my pay grade. I'm not involved in that. And I get that. I'm not being critical of that idea. But what I will also say in conjunction to that is, this is something where every voice needs to be heard. So what if you're a classroom teacher, or a director level, coordinator level, or you think that decision is made above you? I would encourage you to resist that thought, resist that tendency, and call a meeting. Invite the superintendent or the federal programs director to the table, buy some donuts, sit down, have a conversation and say, I know that it seems weird for me to be presenting this idea, but I've always wanted to do X, Y, and Z. Is this something that we can do? And I just encourage everybody to come to the table and be part of the conversation with this kind of money. Lisa, do you have anything that you would like to say just to wrap it up?
Yeah, I would just echo that. We put some placeholders in our original application for summer learning and before and after school, but that's our big next movement here, is getting our teachers at the table, right? Designing some sort of summer learning experiences that are nothing our kids have seen before, right? We can come in and we can do reading blocks and math blocks, but we want kids out and about, partnering in the community. We want them to love summer learning, right? Our biggest issue and problem will be if everybody wants to have it again the next year when we don't have funding, right? And that's a great problem to have, but we really want to think about doing it differently and incorporating more technology and more experiences for kids that aren't your traditional school setting experiences.
Yeah, when you say that, it reminds me of a special project we got to do just this last summer with an initiative we called Trails Camp. So for those of you who are maybe not familiar with this on the call, we have a curriculum that we've written, a STEM curriculum that we've written called Trails. And Trails is a lesson plan library that is geared for an educator who is one-to-one, and she's looking for some inspiration on how to teach her standards using technology. And so we've written hundreds of lessons, and we had an opportunity this summer to take a handpick of those lessons and facilitate a STEM camp for students in Louisiana. And it was magical. I mean, we already had a pretty good curriculum. We invited 70 children to the camp. We ended up ending the camp with like 85 because everybody's got a brother or sister who decided to show up on day 2. And it was so much fun. And again, this is not the kind of thing that you would probably have funding for to do, on a typical year. But in this case, there's money set aside for summer learning loss, and we're able to do something creative like that. So not to and not to plug too hard, but for anybody who's interested in that kind of thing, there's a website. I can put it in the chat. Actually, I'll do that while we're talking. But we have a website where you can get to all the Trails curriculum too. Kate, would you be willing to come in and just share? I don't know if I've not been able to keep an eye on the Q&A. So do we have anything that we need to answer for Q&A?
Nothing has come through on the chat yet. I did put the link to Trails up there, so if anyone is interested in looking at that digital lesson library, you can use that link. One thing that I've been hearing a lot from people is, wondering about ECF. Like you mentioned ECF earlier, and so I've been hearing a lot about ECF and like what the difference between ECF and ESSER are, what you should be using each for, how you can kind of maximize the spend on both of those.
Yeah, I don't mind to take Lisa, do you want to take a crack at that, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I think we can tag team it. For us, we put all of those connectivity type items, right? Student devices, those necessity type items that you need to provide remote learning or virtual learning. We put all of that in ECF, right? Which is reimbursement, and there's limits per device and things like that. But we originally had them in our ESSER plan. So for us, that freed up, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's making sure you do put them in the right buckets so you don't, spend it over here and then it's too late, obviously.
Yeah, and the only echo I will have to that is, just for clarity's sake, ECF is earmarked specifically for devices and hotspots. So if it's devices and hotspots that you need, I would probably follow Lisa's playbook on that one and go to ECF dollars for that, where ESSER dollars are a little bit more, I shouldn't say a little bit more, a lot more open-ended. And yes, you can buy devices and hotspots with ESSER money, but since there is special money earmarked on ECF for that, I think the smarter move is to put all of that devices and hotspots over in ECF, and then your ESSER is your dream big money. Anybody else? Anyone else have questions or comments for the group? Oh, here's one. Let's see.
Yeah, I see a question about the goal with hotspots and Chromebooks and kind of the disconnect. And it does seem like we've gone back and forth, but with ESSER funds, the big purpose of that was to return safely to in-person learning and address the impact of COVID, right? But at the same time, there are kids who had a lot of success in the virtual environment. You could extend the day, as we talked about earlier, before and after school programs can be virtual. So really it's a combination. And what we, for our kids that had success, we've continued with our online classroom platform, even though we're in person, because there are kids who are in quarantine, right? And they need to keep up. And when we first started this in Heyworth, we had kids actually FaceTiming a kid in the class because they didn't want to miss out, right? And now that we have some of the technology in place, we can do that, a better way. But I think you have to be prepared for anything. If we learn nothing else, it's, you have to be flexible and you got to be ready to adapt.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Awesome. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah, having that support for staff. Yeah. And you know what? I will also say, I'm big on the human investment side of things with that. And I will also say that I went to school to learn how to manage a face-to-face classroom. I mean, when I was in undergrad school, it was 2004 or 5 or so, and I took my class on classroom management, and I was assuming, and we were all assuming that we had all of those children right in front of us. And the nuanced differences for managing that virtual classroom and managing the face-to-face classroom are enough to warrant some conversation and some professional learning around what it feels like to not only just manage the classroom, but also engage in a meaningful way. And I see your comment there about it being difficult to set expectations and to empower our staff. And I couldn't agree more that has to be part of the solution. Very good.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that as we're thinking about these ideas, and I saw the staffing issues and extra support with staffing shortages. I know we said it earlier, but it's thinking differently too, right? We're near a university. Is there a way we can capitalize on education undergrad majors or community service partners, right? Pay our teachers differently, right? We're looking at camp counselor options. It's tough to teach in this environment, and it's really tough to get additional commitment to teach in the summer too. So we have to make it enjoyable and different for our staff too.
Yeah, very good. Kate, if you want to fire off that exit survey, I would just tell everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Remember those calls to action. Number one, be involved in the conversation. And number two, dream really big right now. And thank you, Lisa, for joining us, for being involved in this. Feels really good to connect with someone who just gets it. And I can tell you get it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you guys do that survey. Don't forget, we're sending you Starbucks. There is nothing wrong with Starbucks. I checked. It is all good. I'm not a coffee guy. I'm a hot chocolate kind of guy. And it's always spot on. All right, everyone. I'm signing off in the chat. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Josh.
Absolutely, Matt. Thanks for being on. Don't forget to hit that survey at the end.
Gosh, this is, if this was an in-person presentation, this is where you'd play your off music.
I would.
your
I would play Country Roads.
country roads.
That's how we end things in West Virginia. That's how we end church services and weddings and funerals, and it's not over till you play country roads.
You can always sing.
Yeah.
Oh, I've
We're
been
gonna
known
get
to
an
sing.
acapella.
I've been known to sing. I'm not too good to break one out. If I should have brought my guitar up here. That's the way we'll end them from now on. I'll bring my guitar up here and we'll end that way.
Everyone will sign off really quickly.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd be like, all right, well, we're done with this. I can tell you what I'm not staying around for is to hear Josh sing Country Roads. I think that's it. I think we have that's all of our people participating in the survey. I think we can go ahead and shut her down, Kate.
Great. Thanks again, everyone.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Bye everyone. See you later.